And we're live. Hi, welcome one and all. This is Shira Goldberg of The Addiction Show, your hostess with the mostest. Today I really have with me someone who's so cool. He is the editor-in-chief of Substance.com. I think everyone is familiar with him from his major contributions when he was with thefix.com. Will Godfrey. He is the man that has really created an amazing resource. He was affiliated with The Fix since its inception. He made it all the way up to editor-in-chief, and now he's branched out on his own, and he has an amazing crew with him. So he's going to share with us his little story about how he went from The Fix to creating his own vision with the help of some friends, some very famous friends, and tell us all about his take on, or the Substance.com's take on the politics, the culture, the community. There's a whole lot going on with recovery, and he's always keeping us updated on the latest and greatest innovations regarding addiction and moving forward. So, Will Godfrey, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you very much, Shira. Good to be here.
So tell us about your journey. You were talking to me. You said you used to publish a newspaper in London. That's where you're originally from. For those of you that can't pinpoint that accent, which I love that accent. It's so great. So you created and were the publisher of a magazine in an inner city prison in London. How in the world did you get that gig?
Well, that's a good question. It's one of those jobs you end up doing it and you think, how on earth did I get here? I was I was actually working in the education department there. I like to tell people I've done 4 years in prison, but I could probably get sort of time served with a minor manslaughter charge or something like that. I don't know, but yeah, and it was actually one of the inmates had the idea of setting up a newspaper that was written by and for the prisoners there. It was a large inner city London prison, and so one of my colleagues and I co-founded it, and we had a team of inmates who were doing the writing, doing a little bit of reporting, just sort of sharing stories about their time and the issues in there. And we put it out. It was read by the prisoners, by their families, by prison staff, and it was a small venture, but something that we were really proud of. We were lucky to have the Guardian newspaper. I don't know if you heard of them, just down the road, and they gave us a lot of support with computer equipment and sent journalists in to do workshops with the men, and so we ran that for some years. And of course, I didn't think of that publication to begin with as being directly about drugs or addiction or drug policy or any of those things, but of course it was, because when you're in prison, you see the consequences all around you, both of addiction and of drug policy, and it's absolutely central to these people's lives, and so that was part of what inspired my interest in this subject area.
Well, it's really amazing that you were able to, and with the help of the inmates, to develop and create something that's really so expressive of what happened to them, and by sharing their stories, I mean, that's really therapeutic, and for them to be acknowledged and having a voice to share what was going on. I think just that recognition alone really helps with that process of understanding that they did have a role in where they're at, but also it wasn't exclusively on them. I mean, it takes a village to help, and it takes a village to get someone in a prison situation.
Absolutely, it was also a kind of a good exercise as an editor, because of course prisons are places where people are suffering, and the powers that be that run the prisons don't necessarily want the truth to get out there about people's stories. They're very edgy about the British tabloids, kind of notorious, and they were always very worried that stories would get out about drug use in prison and so on, and get the authorities there a bad name in the press, and so we were subject to quite serious censorship a lot of the time, and we were kind of constantly in conflict with the prison governors because we wanted to tell the truth about what these men's lives were like, and that wasn't always acceptable. So it was a very good exercise, and it really makes you appreciate when you're running a publication in the outside world, appreciate having the freedom to say more or less what you want.
Well, I mean, that makes sense that the powers that be don't want to be exposed in anything that would be considered a blemish. So did that change your publication, their viewpoint that, hey, maybe instead of being censored, but, making you censored, maybe they should reevaluate some of the policies or some of the things that they were doing that they were afraid might leak out?
Very much so. I think, rather than try to suppress the fact that so many people in prison were actively using heroin and most other drugs you can think of, they would have done a lot better to actually get some more harm reduction information out there to say, okay, people are using, what can we do to help keep them safer, for example. But then, sort of long story short, I ended up in New York a few years ago, and that's where I got into the online media.
I mean, that's really crazy. I'm so impressed. You've only been here 3.5 years, and you were one of the central people that started the Fix, and you shot up right to editor-in-chief. I mean, like, that's really cool. How did you get connected with the Fix and that vision? And because our views on addiction and recovery are really shifting, and I think in a really great direction. I think just by acknowledging what's available as far as different resources and really being able to have a dialogue, like it really helps create some momentum for active change, not just rehashing the same procedures and policies, and we're just seeing more people in prison. I just saw a statistic past couple of days, unbelievable. We are the highest ranked as far as industrialized nations that have the most people in prison. Like 2.3 million people are in prison, and most of those are being convicted because of drug-related crimes, even from very minor, or what I consider minor crimes, obviously, who the prosecutors didn't think so. But I mean, there's a real opening for conversation there. Like, these policies obviously aren't working. I mean, we've shot up exponentially.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we are really being forced. It's in our face. Like, whatever we're doing is not working. So let's hear some different ideas, and that's what.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's what you're able to do with your Substance.com website. Now, I've seen really big time people on there already. You have someone who I follow as much as I can legally without being a stalker. I love her. Oh, I have her book too. I just got another one of her books. And this is just amazing. She is a journalist. You can see it. She's a journalist for Time Magazine. She really has just an amazing, and she's really intelligent in her. It's not just her opinion. I mean, she is really factual, and she's really one of those people that is not afraid to share the truth and to share what she sees that can be changed. And she has a lot of opinions, and I just posted on my Facebook today that I think I've agreed with every single thing she's ever written that I've seen. She's an amazing person to have on your team. So how did you get this team of these fabulous writers and brilliant minds?
Well, yes, I mean, the person you're talking about, Maya Solovitz, is undeniably a rock star of the addiction journalism world. She's phenomenally knowledgeable. She fearlessly speaks the truth, and we're very proud to have her as a columnist at Substance.com. In order not to upset the other writers, I should say we have a bunch of really great other writers as well, like Jeff Deany, Tony O'Neill, Effie Ann Vare, Josiah Hess, and many more. I won't attempt to do the whole list, but yeah, Maya has been putting it out there. Of course, she's got an amazing personal story of heroin addiction and addressing that successfully. But also she's she's somebody who's been involved in harm reduction from the word go. She's somebody who's not afraid to speak out against treatment practices and against received wisdoms that are actually doing a lot more harm than good. I mean, I think that Substancecom, as you know, is a website that tries to tackle and enhance understanding of everything to do with our relationship with substances and potentially addictive habits. And the way I see it, there are really two very big harms that we're talking about, and the one is addiction itself, which is obviously incredibly complex and incredibly damaging, and the other is bad drug policy, which I'm afraid that most of the world has been subjected to for many decades now. And when you've spent time in prison as I have, you see people who have spent decades of their lives had them taken away from them for being morally no worse than you or me, really. And all right-thinking people, we should feel very angry about that. I mean, you mentioned that the US has an astronomical incarceration rate, and that's something that is really, I'm afraid, shameful. Happily, as you mentioned, this is one of the most exciting times ever to be covering this field, because not only do we have people's attitudes towards addiction and drug use changing and stigma sort of almost visibly lifting year by year, but we actually have some extremely encouraging news over the last few years, and particularly just very recently about laws changing as well in ways that benefit all of us. Of course, I'm not just talking about people who are directly in prison themselves. I'm talking about the whole of society, that these laws like marijuana legalization, like Good Samaritan laws to protect people who are witnesses to overdose and call for help, like naloxone distribution, which we know saves lives, and all these things are moving forward, and it's incredibly exciting. Although there is a huge distance left to go.
Absolutely. I say often, I am so glad to be involved in this movement, this community, it's truly a pioneering effort, and I feel like I had to do my own journey. I'm really glad to have stopped at this point, because this is really where it's happening. This is, there's so many issues associated with this. It's civil rights issues, it's policy change, it's awareness, it's people coming out of the shadows. That association with addiction and being anonymous has now transformed into having a voice and being very public about your views, because I think it's really dangerous when you have the experience and you have the story and the history and you're letting someone else say it, especially someone like in the political realm that really has they're so distanced from the truth and the core issues. There's really a disconnect. So I'm seeing a lot of people, and what really excites me is I'm seeing everyday people stepping up to the plate, and they're sick of the stigma. They're sick of being ashamed of themselves, and that's it's like coming out. And I'm very open and very vocal, and I think that the more people are, it's not, I don't know if there's like just a overall comfort level there, but it's out of necessity. It's like listening to someone tell the story of addiction that has no idea really what they're talking about. I'm like, oh my gosh, just sit down, let me tell you what really goes on. Let me tell you my story. And I think it's good things and bad things are contagious, and that's really what's starting to happen, and it's really exciting. I see it every day, and just like you said, it's palatable. I can feel the change of the stigma reduction and more discussion about harm reduction and more awareness of all of these options that are available.
I couldn't agree more. It's a really great thing that's happening. And when we're forming our opinions of this issue, when we're forming policy, where better to get it from than the horse's mouth? People who've experienced addiction themselves have to be involved in the debate and have to feel comfortable sharing their stories. And that's one of the important functions of Substance.com is giving people a platform to share their personal stories in a judgment-free, stigma-free environment. I think that's so important.
Yeah, because what Substance.com is, like you said, it's a platform for people to really have exchanges of ideas, to share their stories, and to work together to create this nationwide dialogue. I mean, I know you're being viewed by many different countries, but since you are based in New York, your following is, there's a lot of us here that really are so eager to see such a resource made available, because your stories really are across the spectrum, and it takes a lot of strength and diligence to maintain your point of view, because sometimes these points of view are not shared by the majority. So, like with Maya, she's been in this for a long time, and but I'm sure she wasn't always as revered as she is now, because her ideas kind of went against the grain of at that time when she started mainstream mentalities about addiction.
Absolutely. I mean, she was definitely ahead of her time. She's been saying what she's been saying for a while, and other people are starting to catch on, and of course not just her, but many pioneers in many of them involved in wonderful organizations in New York, such as the Harm Reduction Coalition or the Drug Policy Alliance. People I admire, and people who've been speaking this truth for so long. I mean, you mentioned some of the debates that we have on our site, and there are many very rigorous debates in this field, as you're aware. We don't all agree about everything. There's the ongoing kind of clash, if you like, between proponents of abstinence and proponents of harm reduction, which you still see go on. I don't think it should be a clash at all. I mean, I think that we're all trying to solve the same issues, and it can all be viewed as part of a continuum. But we have those debates. We have the debates over the disease model. Is it a disease? Is it not? And people like Stanton Peele have been writing on Substance.com and putting their views across, and then other people have been chiming in to agree or disagree. But I think that one unifying thing that all right-minded people in this field can agree on is that the time to be ashamed of addiction or of drug use in general is over. None of us should be pointing the finger and blaming and exposing and stigmatizing people, because all of us have relationships or ex-relationships with drugs, every single one of us, whether whether you've been through a heroin addiction or whether you just like that extra cup of coffee in the morning. I mean, this is something that appeals to all of us, and that's why Substance.com tries to tackle this subject area with the broadest possible brush, because it is a universal subject.
It's a universal subject, and the way that your writers and your contributors are able to express their facet or their opinion. I mean, it really is a collaborative effort, even though behind the scenes there's a lot of dissension. And like you said, it's a disease model, and then no, it's not. It's your social perspective, and you're personally accountable, and then there's from everything in between. So sometimes it's a little disconcerting to me, and this constant battle. And then I was thinking, wait a minute, we're able to have these battles, we're able to hash it out on the various platforms, and to present, really let it all hang out, so people can say, wow, this is so much more comprehensive than, okay, I am addicted to drugs and just stop. So I think it's really, I mean, it's really great. Like, so I just had to change my perspective on it, because I feel like these battles are exhausting and they're a waste of time, and let's just, our goals are all the same in the end. It's just we all have different perspectives on how to get there, so it's like just, but I see what's being created through these dissension and the dialogues, and we're really creating it's really truly a movement, and it's coming across enough where it's getting to the people of like the political realm with drug courts. I mean, there's a lot of power in these dialogues.
There is, and it often comes across on the screen, if you like, as very hostile, as very shrill, and you know what? It's worth taking these subjects seriously because we are talking about often saving people's lives in the end.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, when I've spent time with some of the people who you see arguing on our website. They get along absolutely fine. It's just that they're passionate about their subject, which they're very knowledgeable about, and they will put their views across. And we're determined to give people a platform to do this. We're a website that has elbows, and we think that these things are worth arguing about if you care about them. But there are things that are worth arguing about, and there are things that we can all agree on as well. And whether I think there is I was talking about the consensus that the time of shame and stigma is over with addiction. I think another consensus that people are, almost universally willing to step up and say now is that the war on drugs isn't working. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody agrees on what should replace the war on drugs. Are we going decrim? Are we going full legalization? Are we going harm reduction? People are going to have their arguments about that too. But at least we have a couple of good solid truths that we can all get behind, and then we can carry on bickering about the details, and Substance.com is a place where that will happen.
Yeah, I think so. Reading, kind of checking out Substance.com. I love it, by the way. It's one of my favorite resources already. And that's why when I contacted you, I was almost in a panic. Like, wow, this is like the best resource out there. How long have you been around? So you've only had this for what, a couple of months?
Yeah, we launched in mid-March, so we're a very young site. We got this plant in here to make ourselves look a bit more mature, but really, we've been around for just a few weeks. I mean, the planning was underway for a lot longer before that, of course, but we're breaking out, we're growing fast. We've taken a combination of our very favourite writers and editors from the Figs, and we've added a whole bunch of new people as well, and in a sharp new direction, and I hope that readers will think the same.
I think your resource, Substance.com, really shows the evolution of this conversation and just the direction in general of where all of our collective minds are at. Because it's true, sometimes I feel like the community, we're like a family. Like we argue, we bicker, we talk about each other, but in a very familial way. So if you go against any of us individually, it's like we don't like that. So for you to be able to provide such a platform that it's like you don't have to agree, just this is my side, my perspective, and we all have them. So I think by providing this arena for exchanging ideas, exchanging perspectives, constantly getting new information, and educating yourself by being involved, it's really pushing along the movement, and that's truly what I think. This is not just some in the shadows, at some secret location, some meetings where people are anonymously connecting. I mean, we are a global force, and that is because this is the result of all of the suppression, and like you had to deal with the censorship and the stigma and people who are involved with policy not listening because they're we weren't able to have a collective voice. So it's really empowering for everyone in the community, and it's also helping elevate those that are still in their addiction to know. I mean, 20 years ago, this is unheard of. I can't even imagine being around as an advocate 20 years ago, where the stigma was so embedded in our societal psyche. you know, dangerous, and for a lot of people now, it's like this is just where we have to be, and it's really making a profound difference.
Yes, I mean, as you say, this is a movement that is you know, the whole, you know, the movement in the broadest sense, the whole addiction slash drug policy community that is growing in confidence and growing in strength and importance. And sometimes when you're in the thick of it, involved in the arguments every day, you don't necessarily appreciate that that if you step back and take a longer term perspective, how far we've come. It's absolutely amazing, and I do think that, you know, that our site and many other things would have been inconceivable even perhaps 20 years ago. There was I don't know if you saw one recent column that that Maya wrote for us, and it was making the argument that the terms substance abuse and substance abuser are stigmatizing terms which we should agree not to use in future. And whatever you think about that particular question, she made the very good point that the fact that we're even having these discussions now about nomenclature in terms of our movement actually shows how much power we've gained, because other disadvantaged groups have previously you know, had these discussions about terminology that mainstream society should use. And that alone is just a little indication of how far we've come.
Absolutely, and you know, the DSM-5 just came out last year, and they've modified. I mean, semantics and the psychology behind linguistics, it's well studied. So for us to be able to be a part of that change, where we're not considered, you know, self-labeling myself in a negative way doesn't happen, because I feel like I put in my time to be negative and self-loathing while I was in my addiction, and I'm done.
Good for you.
like no, thank you. So, you know, now the diagnoses it's on a continuum, and now they're saying substance use disorder. So it's not exactly where it needs to be, but it is moving in the right direction. And one thing I really like to see that, or I'm really happy that I'm aware of it, because like in 1973 or 1974, the DSM, which is the psychology Bible, it's the diagnostic and statistical manual, they had being a homosexual as a mental disease. And the reason why that changed, not because all of these psychologists and psychiatrists said, you know what, maybe we're wrong. It's because the LGBT community got together and said, you know, this is bullshit. This isn't true. And they fought the policy as a united front, and as a result, it was changed, and it's no longer considered. I mean, it never was, but now it's officially no longer considered a mental disease or a disorder. It's, you know, so I mean, that is a perfect example of how societal views can change enough where we can make changes on, you know, on such an important level like that, which reduces the stigma, and it really helps people that are affected, like with addiction, to know really where they're at, and not be defined by someone on the outside, but really have the skills and the resources and the support to say, like, you know, this is where I'm at, and this is where I can be. And you have that reinforcement and that communal vibe and support, and it really makes a world of difference. So
that's a really good point. I mean, I think that you know, there's plenty in the latest DSM to be encouraged about. I think that seeing addiction as a continuum with varying degrees of severity is a much more nuanced and subtle and realistic approach of viewing this problem. I mean, you know, traditionally, particularly in the US, probably more than elsewhere, it's always been viewed as, you know, you either have addiction or you don't. But I think that there are vast grey areas in the middle, and I think that if we can appreciate the reality of that, that we can probably address the issue much more effectively as a result. So although the DSM is encouraging, exactly as you say, I don't think we can rely on its authors to push forward to push forward the cause. That's why we need advocates. That's why we need people who are prepared to say things like this is not okay, and probably to some extent medical and psychiatric opinion may follow that.
Well, I think what's really important, and my background is in psychology, and so I'm very hyper aware of the linguistics and how that translates into how you identify in whatever realm that you're in. Whether you're a diehard addict or you're a little bit of an it's like, I mean, it's really about how it's affecting your life in a negative way, and that should only be determined by you, not by some diagnosis. And I think with the current state of affairs going in the direction that they are, we're just going to gain more ground. And it's we're the catalyst for change by having this discussion right now. And that's why I really appreciate being connected with Substance.com, because you're really at the forefront of this exchange of ideas and these resources and everything that's developing, and it's really developing every day. So we have a lot more to work with than people that have suffered and battled addiction in the past, and it's causing us collectively to change our own perspectives and just be more open and more visible for new information. And I think that's even a big deal for people to be able to incorporate new information into their existing way of thinking. So that's how we're all being more effective collectively.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, our whole approach is to be open-minded and plain-speaking about a subject area where there have been too many holy cows, if you like. People have been afraid to speak truth because of received wisdom, and I think that that's profoundly unhealthy. And I think that Substance.com, we certainly aspire to be at the forefront of changing that, and I believe the Addiction Show is very much about that as well. The open-mindedness and allowing people to say openly what could not be said openly before.
Yeah. Well, as long as you agree with me, exactly. I'm just kidding. Yeah, I love open-minded people, as long as you think just like me. I think it's really important for all of us to have our own opinions, and sometimes when you're in a dialogue with someone that has a different opinion, it really almost forces you to think about it, because you have new information. And just like we're all fluid. I mean, I am nothing like I was in the midst of my addiction. We all evolve, we all change, and I'm not even the same person I was yesterday, because I have new experiences, I have new information, I've learned something at least in a 24-hour period. So I think that's kind of a way to extend that. It's being extended in that way, that mindset, into the community, and making it a larger picture. So we are getting noticed, and we have the footing now where we didn't before, because we're working together. So we can be involved with changing policy. I mean, it's not just fingers crossed, hopefully they vote in the right way. We already have now coalitions and advocacy groups, and it doesn't take anything to get involved except for some action on your part. So it's available to all of us. So I think Substance.com is right at the forefront, like you said, and it's getting people excited. I mean, it's all over my social media. And that's why
that tells me that our social media person is doing her job well.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I thought you guys seem so established. I was like, how did I overlook this? But I was like, ew, it's a new resource. I'm still in the game. I'm still cutting edge.
I'm lucky enough to have with me a bunch of people, not only the writers of the ilk that I just mentioned, but some people who really know what they're doing on the editorial team. Walter Armstrong, May Wilkerson, and Samantha Felix, our our excellent outreach manager. So I know I look pretty lonely at the moment, but I'm not on my own here in New York. We've got a great bunch of people and you know, and a brilliant bunch of freelancers who are bringing the ideas to the table all the time. And if we're a collective like that, then we should be able to think much more creatively and effectively than if we do it on our own.
Absolutely, and it's just so great to see the progression of this movement, and I'm really happy that you're a part of it and I'm a part of it. Now, you just said freelancers. I think there are a lot of established and aspiring writers that would love to contribute. So how does that happen if someone's interested?
It's very easy. Just send an email and tell us your ideas. The email address to send it to is editor@substance.com. I don't know if you've got a magic thing that can make that pop up on the screen, but anyway, I'll say it again. Editor, I don't know what I'm talking about. editor@substance.com. You know, pitch us ideas.
Don't get all Harry Potter on me. We're almost done. Some magic. Yeah, I have some magic. I can add that. Well, so we're going to see a lot of people that have a voice. They have something to say, and I'm so happy to hear it. We don't all have to agree on everything, but we all have the same common goal, which is being advocates for ourselves and for our collective, and we are making changes. So Will Godfrey, editor-in-chief of Substance.com. So now I can officially say you don't have to choose between style or substance. Now you can have both.
That's a very nice tagline. Can I steal that?
Yeah, you sure can. I've got a million of them. No, style versus substance. You can have both. Thank you so much, Will. You've been great, and I look forward to all of the collaboration and all of the resources from Substance.com and the continued discussion. I mean, if we're gonna hash it out, let's hash it out on Substance.com. I can't think of any better place.
Thank you so much for having me on the Addiction Show, Shira. I've really appreciated it and enjoyed talking with you today.
Thank you so much, Will. So, like I said, check out Substance.com. I'm sure it's already on your Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. They're everywhere. So just check them out. And if you want to, submit your stories and ideas, and be a part of the process. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.